The planet Sareth was burning. From his bunker deep beneath the capital city, Elder Voss watched the fires spread across the horizon. The sky had turned orange and black. Smoke rose from 1,000 buildings. His people, the Ilari, were dying by the millions. The Ilari were not warriors. They had never been warriors. For 10,000 years, they had lived in peace. They built beautiful cities. They made art and music. They studied the stars and dreamed of meeting other species among them. They had no weapons, no armies, no ships of war. This made them perfect victims. The Keth Dominion had arrived 3 months ago. Their ships had filled the sky like a swarm of insects. They did not come to trade. They did not come to talk. They came to take everything and kill everyone. Elder Voss remembered the first day. He remembered watching Keth soldiers march through the streets. They were tall creatures with hard shells and many legs. Their eyes showed no feeling. They killed without anger, without joy, without anything at all. They simply killed because killing was what they did. Now, 3 months later, only a few million Ilari remained. They hid in bunkers and caves. They starved in the darkness while the Keth hunted them like animals. Elder Voss was old. His feathers had turned gray long ago. He had lived a good life full of learning and peace. He was ready to die. But he was not ready to watch his entire species disappear. He turned to his assistant, a young female named Sarah. Her feathers were dirty, and her eyes were tired. She had not slept in days. "Send the signal," Elder Voss said. Sarah looked at him with fear. "Elder, the council said we should not. If we call for help, others will know how weak we are. They might come to finish what the Keth started." "The Keth will finish us anyway," Voss replied. "We have nothing left to lose. Send the signal to everyone, every frequency, every direction. Send it to the edges of known space and beyond." Sarah nodded slowly. She walked to the communication device and began typing. Her hands were shaking. The message was simple. Elder Voss had written it himself. It said, "Anyone, please, help us." The signal flew out into the darkness of space. It traveled faster than light, bouncing off relay stations and satellites. It reached 100 star systems in 100 different directions. Most species received the message and did nothing. The Keth Dominion was too powerful. Fighting them meant death. So they turned away and pretended they had not heard. Some species held meetings to discuss the situation. They talked for days and weeks. They made speeches about justice and morality. But they never sent ships. They never sent soldiers. They only sent words, and words could not stop the Keth. But one species did not talk. One species did not wait. One species heard the cry for help and began moving immediately. The signal reached Earth 17 hours after it was sent. Admiral Hans Sayok was drinking coffee in his office aboard the warship Hammer of Terra when the message arrived. He was a man of 50 years with gray hair and a face full of scars. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. His enemies called him the Iron Admiral. His soldiers simply called him Sir. He read the message twice. Then he called his senior officers to the war room. Captain Una Park arrived first. She was younger than Hans Sayok, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She was the best tactical officer in the fleet. Some said she could predict enemy moves before the enemy even thought of them. Next came Sergeant Wu Tae, the leader of the Marine forces. He was a big man with thick arms and a quiet voice. He had led ground assaults on 12 different worlds. His soldiers loved him because he always fought beside them, never behind them. Dr. Hana Shin came last. She was not a soldier, but a scientist. She studied alien species and helped humans communicate with them. She was gentle and kind, but she understood war. She had seen what happened when peaceful species met violent ones. Lieutenant Jun Kang joined by video link from the fighter bay. He was the best pilot in the fleet, a young man with a quick smile and faster reflexes. He had shot down more enemy ships than anyone in the Navy's history. Han Seok showed them the message. He showed them data about the Ilari, a peaceful species with no defenses. He showed them data about the Keth Dominion, a conquering empire that had never lost a war in 10,000 years. The Keth fleet is estimated at 2,000 ships, Captain Unipark said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were calculating. We have 200. We would be outnumbered 10 to 1. The Keth have conquered 47 species, Dr. Hana Shin added. No one has ever stopped them. Sergeant Wu Tae said nothing. He just looked at the images of burning Ilari cities and dead civilians. Admiral Han Seok stood at the head of the table. He looked at each of his officers in turn. I have heard your concerns, he said. Now let me tell you what I know. I know that millions of innocent people are dying right now. I know that no one else is going to help them, and I know that we are humans. He pressed a button on the table. A star map appeared, showing the route to Sereth. We come from Earth, Han Seok continued. A world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages and meteor strikes and diseases that wiped out half our population. We fought predators with nothing but sticks and rocks. We climbed to the top of the food chain on the most dangerous planet in this region of space. The galaxy calls us Deathworlders because our home is a place of death, and we conquered it. He looked at the signal again. Anyone, please, help us. The Keth have never lost a war, he said quietly. Neither have we. Set course for Sereth. We leave in 1 hour. No one argued. No one complained. They simply nodded and went to prepare. Within 1 hour, the Hammer of Terra and its fleet of 200 warships activated their engines. The ships were gray and angular, covered in weapons and armor. They were built for one purpose: war. The fold drives activated. Space bent around the fleet, and then they were gone, racing across the galaxy toward a dying world. The Ilari did not know help was coming. Elder Voss sat in his bunker and waited for death. He had given up hope, but hope was coming anyway. It was coming at faster than light speed, carrying 50,000 soldiers and enough weapons to crack planets. The Deathworlders had heard the call, and they were answering. Elder Voss was praying when the sky split open. He was in the bunker with 300 other Ilari. They were hungry and tired and afraid. Above them, Keth soldiers were searching the ruins of the city, looking for survivors to kill. Everyone knew they would be found soon. Everyone knew they would die. Then came the light. It started as a small point in the sky, bright as a star. Then it grew larger and larger. The clouds began to spin around it, like water going down a drain. Colors that Voss had never seen before danced across the heavens. The Keth soldiers stopped searching. They looked up at the light with their many eyes. For the first time since the invasion began, they seemed confused. The light exploded outward, and ships began to pour through. Voss watched from a crack in the bunker ceiling. He counted 10 ships. Then 50, then 100. They kept coming and coming, gray, angular vessels covered in weapons. They looked nothing like Ilari ships or Keth ships. They looked like they were built by creatures who had been fighting since the beginning of time. A transmission cut through all frequencies. Every device on the planet received it at once. Ilari vessel, this is Admiral Han Seok of the Terran United Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Point us at your enemy. Voss could not believe what he was hearing. He grabbed the communication device with shaking hands and responded. This is Elder Voss of the Ilari Council. The Keth control our entire system. Their main fleet is in orbit. They have thousands of ships. You cannot win. You should leave while you can. There was a pause. Then the human spoke again. With respect, Elder, we did not come all this way to leave. How many of your people are still alive? Perhaps 4 million. We are hiding in bunkers across the planet. Stay hidden. Stay safe. We will handle the rest. The transmission ended. Voss looked at his people. They stared back at him with wide eyes. Who are these creatures? Sarah asked. Voss shook his head slowly. I do not know, but I think we are about to find out. High above the planet, the human fleet spread into battle formation. Admiral Han Seok stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Terra, watching the enemy appear on his screens. The Keth had 800 ships in the system. They were all moving toward the human fleet now, forming into attack groups. The largest Keth vessels were twice the size of anything humanity had brought. Captain Una Park studied the enemy formation. Her fingers danced across her control panel, analyzing patterns and predicting movements. They are coming in 3 waves, she reported. First wave is 200 ships. They will test our defenses. Second wave is 300 ships. They will try to surround us. Third wave is the heavy ships. They will try to finish us. And what do you suggest? Han Seok asked. Una smiled slightly. It was not a friendly smile. We break the first wave so completely that the second and third lose their will to fight. Han Seok nodded. Make it happen. The Keth commander sent a message to the human fleet. His name was Supreme Brood Keth, and he had conquered 11 species personally. He had never lost a battle in his entire life. Unknown vessels, you have entered Keth territory. Leave now or be destroyed. This is your only warning. Han Seok replied with a single sentence. Come and take us. The Keth commander felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was not fear exactly. It was surprise. No species had ever responded to him like this. He ordered the attack. The first wave of 200 Keth ships rushed forward. They fired their weapons, filling space with green energy. The human fleet did not retreat. It accelerated directly into the attack. Lieutenant Jun Kang led the fighter squadrons. He flew a small ship built for speed and violence. Behind him came 500 other human pilots, each one trained from childhood to fight. Jun opened his communication channel. All fighters weapons free. Show them what Deathworlders can do. His fighter dove into the enemy formation. The Keth pilots were good. They were experienced, but they were not ready for humans. Jun moved his ship in ways that should have been impossible. He turned at angles that would break the bones of most species. He accelerated so fast that his vision went gray from the pressure. His hands moved faster than his conscious mind could follow, guided by instinct and years of training. In 30 seconds, he destroyed 4 Keth fighters. In 5 minutes, he destroyed 20. All around him, human pilots were doing the same. They twisted and spun through the enemy formation like predators through a school of fish. The Keth tried to fight back, but they could not track targets that moved so fast. The first wave broke in 47 minutes. Of 200 Keth ships, only 30 escaped. The human fleet lost 11 ships. On the planet below, Commander Reth watched the battle through a damaged telescope. Reth was an Ilari military officer, one of the few who had argued for building weapons before the invasion. No one had listened to him then. Now he was one of the last soldiers his people had. He could not believe what he was seeing. The Keth were being destroyed. These strange creatures from an unknown world were tearing through them like they were nothing. What are they? He whispered. Elder Voss stood beside him, watching the lights in the sky. The transmission said they were Terran, human. I have never heard of them. They fight like demons, Reth said. Look at how fast they move. Look at how they sacrifice their ships to destroy enemy vessels. They have no fear at all. Above them, the second Keth wave was attacking. The human fleet responded with something the Keth had never seen before. They called it a hammer strike. 20 human ships accelerated to maximum speed and drove directly into the center of the enemy formation. They did not try to survive. They simply crashed through, destroying everything in their path, creating a hole for the rest of the fleet to exploit. The Keth could not understand it. Why would any species sacrifice their own ships like this? Why would anyone choose death? By the end of the day, the Keth had lost 400 ships. The humans had lost 60. The Keth commander ordered his remaining forces to retreat and regroup. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Keth Dominion had been pushed back. That night, a human shuttle landed near Elder Voss's bunker. Dr. Hana Shin stepped out, along with Sergeant Wu Tae and a squad of Marines. Voss met them at the bunker entrance. He was small compared to the humans. His bones were thin and his feathers were ragged. He looked up at Wu Tae, who stood nearly twice his height, covered in armor and carrying weapons. "You came," Voss said quietly. "No one else came, but you did." Hana knelt down to meet his eyes. She had learned basic Ilari language during the journey. "We heard your call," she said. "We could not ignore it." "But why? You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Hana smiled gently. "Because where we come from, helping others is how we survived. Our world was dangerous. Our only strength was each other. When someone cries for help, we answer. It is who we are." Commander Reth stepped forward. His eyes were suspicious. "And what do you want in return? What is the price for your help?" Wu Tae looked at the ruined city around them. He looked at the Ilari refugees hiding in the darkness. He saw their fear and their pain. "The price," he said slowly, "is that you survive. That is all. That is enough." Reth did not believe him. He had lived too long in a galaxy where everyone wanted something, but he said nothing more. Above them, the stars were full of human warships. The battle had just begun, and the Keth were about to learn what happened when they made enemies of Deathworlders. The Keth Dominion did not accept defeat. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had crushed 47 species. They would not be stopped by a handful of ships from an unknown world. The call went out across the Dominion. Every available fleet was ordered to Sereth. Every soldier, every ship, every weapon they had would come together in one massive force. They would destroy these humans completely. They would make an example that the galaxy would never forget. Within 2 weeks, the Keth had gathered 1,500 warships above Sereth. Their fleet filled the sky like a metal cloud. The largest ship was their command vessel, the Pride of Keth, which was 5 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a moon. Admiral Han Seok looked at the enemy fleet and felt nothing but calm. He had been in situations like this before. He had always found a way to win. "They outnumber us 7-1 now," Captain Unipark reported. "Our fleet has been reduced to 180 ships after the previous battles." "Numbers are not everything," Han Seok replied. "What else do we know?" "The Keth fight in patterns. They follow rules. They expect their enemies to do the same." Yuna pulled up a tactical display. "But humans do not follow rules. We break them." Han Seok nodded slowly. "Then let us show them what breaking rules looks like. Begin Operation Nightmare." Operation Nightmare was not a single plan. It was a philosophy. It meant doing everything the enemy did not expect. It meant fighting dirty. It meant winning at any cost. The human fleet split into 20 small groups. Each group attacked from a different direction at a different time. The Keth tried to respond, but every time they moved to face one threat, another appeared behind them. Human ships flew into asteroid fields and used the rocks as weapons, pushing them toward enemy vessels. Human ships pretended to be damaged, then exploded when Keth rescue teams approached. Human ships broadcast fake communications to confuse the enemy command. The Keth had never faced anything like this. Their tactics were based on honor and formation. They lined up, they charged, they overwhelmed with numbers. These humans would not stand still long enough to be overwhelmed. On the planet below, the ground war was even worse. Sergeant Wu Tae led his Marines through the ruins of an Ilari city. They were searching for refugee camps that needed evacuation. The Keth had landed 50,000 ground troops to finish exterminating the Ilari. Wu Tae had 3,000 Marines to stop them. The numbers did not matter to him. Numbers never mattered. "Contact ahead," one of his soldiers reported. Keth patrol. 20 soldiers. Wu-Tay raised his hand and his squad went silent. They moved through the rubble like ghosts, surrounding the enemy patrol without being seen. Keth soldiers were tall and strong. Their shells could stop most weapons. Their claws could cut through metal. They were built for war, but humans were built for something more. They were built to survive. Wu-Tay gave the signal. His Marines opened fire from every direction at once. The Keth patrol was destroyed in 8 seconds. None of them managed to send a warning. Move, Wu-Tay ordered. We have refugees to save. They found the refugee camp 2 hours later. 3,000 Ilari were hiding in an underground shelter. Keth forces were closing in from the north, a force of 500 soldiers. Wu-Tay looked at his squad. He had 40 Marines with him. The rest were spread across the city. We hold here, he said. No Keth gets through. One of his soldiers, a young woman named Private Yoon, looked at the approaching enemy. Sir, there are too many of them. There are always too many of them. That is why we are here. They set up defensive positions around the shelter entrance. They placed mines and traps. They prepared for a fight that would probably kill them all. The Keth came at dawn. 500 soldiers marching in perfect formation, their weapons glowing green in the morning light. They expected to find frightened refugees. They found 40 humans who refused to move. The battle lasted 6 hours. Wu-Tay was shot 3 times. He kept fighting. Private Yoon lost her left arm to a Keth blade. She switched her weapon to her right hand and kept fighting. Marines who ran out of ammunition used knives. Marines who lost their knives used their hands. Commander Reth arrived with Ilari volunteers halfway through the battle. He had never seen anything like what he witnessed that day. The humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like animals protecting their young. They screamed and bled and died, but they did not retreat. They did not surrender. They simply kept killing until there was nothing left to kill. When the battle ended, 37 of the 40 Marines were still alive. All 500 Keth soldiers were dead. Reth walked through the battlefield in shock. He stopped beside Wu-Tay, who was being treated for his wounds by a medic. You were going to die, Reth said. You knew you were going to die. Why did you not run? Wu-Tay looked at the shelter entrance, where Ilari refugees were being led to safety. Children were crying. Parents were holding them close. They were alive. Because they needed us, he said simply. What other reason do we need? In orbit, the space battle reached its peak. The Keth had lost 300 ships, but they still had 1,200. The human fleet had lost 50 more, leaving only 130. Captain Yuna Park was running out of tricks. The enemy was adapting, learning human tactics and finding ways to counter them. They could not keep fighting like this forever. Then she saw an opportunity. The Pride of Keth, the enemy command ship, had moved forward to direct the final assault. It was massive and powerful, but it was also slow, and it had moved too close to the planet's gravity well. Admiral, Yuna said urgently, I have a plan. It is dangerous and possibly insane. Those are my favorite kind of plans, Han Seok replied. Tell me, Yuna explained. They would take 30 ships and dive directly into the gravity well, using the planet's pull to accelerate to incredible speeds. They would come around the planet and hit the Pride of Keth from below, where its shields were weakest. We will lose ships, she warned. The stress will tear some of them apart. How many? 10, maybe 15. Han Seok was quiet for a moment. 10 to 15 ships, hundreds of lives. But if they destroyed the enemy command ship, the entire Keth fleet would fall into chaos. Do it, he ordered. 30 ships broke formation and dove toward the planet. The Keth did not understand what they were doing. By the time they realized, it was too late. The human ships came around Sereth like bullets fired from a gun. They were moving faster than anything the Keth had ever seen. 12 ships broke apart from the stress, their crews dying instantly. The remaining 18 kept going. They hit the Pride of Keth with everything they had. The massive command ship shuddered under the assault. Its shields failed. Its hull cracked. Explosions ripped through its interior. The ship did not explode, but it was crippled, unable to fight or flee. The Keth fleet froze. Their commander was trapped. Their flagship was burning. They had never faced anything like this. Admiral Han Seok broadcast a message to the entire system. Keth Dominion, this is Admiral Han Seok of the Terran United Fleet. Your command ship has fallen. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now and you will be treated with honor. Continue fighting and we will destroy every last one of you. You have 1 hour to decide. The Keth did not surrender. They were too proud, too stubborn. So the humans kept fighting. And they did not stop until every Keth ship was burning or fleeing. Total war had come to Sereth, and the Deathworlders were winning. Victory was close. Everyone could feel it. The Keth fleet had been reduced to 400 ships. The human fleet had 92 left. But the humans were winning. Every day, more Keth ships were destroyed. Every day, more refugees were evacuated to safety. The end of the war seemed near. Then the sky went dark. Admiral Han Seok was on the bridge when the sensors screamed warning. Something massive had just entered the system. Something bigger than anything they had ever seen. "What is that?" Captain Yuna Park whispered. The object appeared on their screens. It was not a ship. It was a moon. A metal moon covered in weapons and engines. It was called the World Burner, and it was the Keth Dominion's final weapon. The World Burner had been used only 3 times in Keth history. Each time it had destroyed a planet completely. It cracked worlds open like eggs and left nothing but floating rubble. The Keth Dominion had sent it here to end the war once and for all. A transmission came from the World Burner. The Keth Supreme Council spoke with one voice. "Humans of Earth, you have caused us great harm. You have destroyed our ships and killed our soldiers, but now it ends. Retreat from this system within 6 hours, and we will allow you to leave. Stay, and we will destroy Sereth and every creature on it. Then we will find your homeworld and do the same." The bridge was silent. Everyone looked at Admiral Han Seok. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his face was calm. "How long until the World Burner can fire?" he asked. Yuna checked her readings. "At its current speed, it will reach firing range in 12 hours. Can we destroy it?" She was quiet for a long time. "I do not know. Nothing has ever destroyed a World Burner before. Our entire fleet might not be enough." Han Seok stood up and walked to the window. He could see the World Burner in the distance, a dark shape blocking out the stars. Behind it, the remaining Keth ships formed a protective wall. Dr. Hana Shin contacted him from the planet's surface. Her voice was shaking. "Admiral, we have 4 million Ilari still on the planet. We cannot evacuate them all in 6 hours. If you retreat, they will die." "I know." "Admiral, please. There must be another way." Han Seok thought about his orders. He thought about his duty. He thought about the politicians back on Earth who would tell him to retreat, to save his fleet, to fight another day. Then he thought about the Ilari. He thought about Elder Voss and Commander Reth and the millions of innocent people who had done nothing wrong except be born on the wrong planet. "We are not leaving," he said finally. "Set all ships to attack formation. We are going to destroy that thing or die trying." Yuna Park began working immediately. She analyzed the World Burner from every angle, looking for weaknesses. After 3 hours, she found something. "The World Burner is powered by a central core," she explained to the senior officers. "The core uses fold space technology to generate enough energy to crack planets. If we could disrupt that core, the entire weapon would tear itself apart." "How do we reach the core?" Han Seok asked. "There is a maintenance tunnel that leads directly to it. The tunnel is heavily defended, but a small ship could theoretically reach it." She paused. The ship would need to carry multiple fold drives set to overload. When they detonate inside the core, the feedback loop would destroy the world burner from the inside. And the pilot? Yuna did not answer. She did not need to. Lieutenant Jun Kong stepped forward. He had been listening from the back of the room. "I will do it," he said. Everyone turned to look at him. He was young, probably the youngest person in the room. His face was calm, but there was fire in his eyes. "June, no," Hana said. "There has to be another way." "There is not," he replied. "My fighter is the fastest in the fleet. I am the best pilot we have. If anyone can reach that core, it is me." Admiral Han Seok looked at the young man for a long time. He had known Jun Kang for 3 years. He had watched him grow from a talented recruit into the best pilot in human history. He had hoped to see him become an admiral someday. Now he was watching him volunteer to die. "Are you certain?" Han Seok asked quietly. Jun nodded. "Admiral, I joined the Navy because I wanted to protect people. My whole life, that is all I ever wanted. If I die stopping that thing, I will have protected an entire planet. 4 million lives. That is worth one of mine." The room was silent. No one could argue with him. Han Seok reached out and placed his hand on Jun's shoulder. "You are the bravest person I have ever known," he said. "I am honored to have served with you." Jun smiled slightly. "Save the honors for after I succeed, Admiral." The attack began 2 hours later. The entire human fleet charged directly at the world burner. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. But they went anyway because behind them was a planet full of people who deserved to live. The Keth fleet met them halfway. Ships exploded on both sides. The darkness of space lit up with weapons fire and burning metal. Human vessels rammed into Keth ships. Keth weapons tore through human armor. Admiral Han Seok directed the battle from the Hammer of Terra. His ship was hit 14 times. He ignored the damage and kept giving orders. "Clear a path," he commanded. "Whatever it takes, clear a path to that tunnel." Ship after ship sacrificed itself. They flew into the enemy formation and detonated their reactors. They blocked weapons fire with their own hulls. They did everything possible to create an opening. Jun Kang flew through the chaos. His fighter was small and fast, dancing between explosions and debris. Behind him, 500 other pilots fought to protect his path. One by one, they fell. Jun watched his friends die on his radar screen. He wanted to turn back and help them, but he could not. He had a mission. "Jun," Captain Yuna's voice came through his communicator. "The path is clear. You have 90 seconds before it closes." "I see it." He accelerated to maximum speed. His vision went gray from the pressure. His hands moved on pure instinct. The tunnel entrance was ahead. It was narrow and filled with defensive weapons. Jun did not slow down. He flew into the tunnel, dodging fire from every direction. His ship was hit twice. Warning lights filled his cockpit. He kept going. The core was ahead. He could see it now, a spinning ball of pure energy larger than his entire ship. Before he reached it, he activated his communication device one last time. "This is Lieutenant Jun Kang. To anyone listening, tell my family I love them. Tell them I flew into the dark so others could see the stars. Tell them I was not afraid." He pressed the detonation trigger. The fold drives overloaded. Space itself began to tear apart around him. In his final moment, Jun Kang thought about the 4 million Ilari on the planet below. He thought about Elder Voss and the refugees in the bunkers. He thought about all the children who would grow up because of what he was about to do. He smiled. The world burner exploded. The blast was visible from 3 star systems away. The massive weapon tore itself apart, pieces flying in every direction. The Keth ships nearby were destroyed instantly. The shockwave pushed the human fleet backward. When the light faded, there was nothing left but debris. Admiral Han Seok stood on his bridge, staring at the empty space where the world burner had been. "Lieutenant Kang's signal is gone. Yuna reported quietly. Her voice was breaking. He did it. The world burner is destroyed. Han Seok did not respond. He could not find words. On the planet below, 4 million Ilari looked up at the sky. They saw the explosion. They saw the death of the weapon that was supposed to kill them. They did not know the name of the pilot who had saved them. They did not know he was only 26 years old, or that he had a mother and father who would never see him again, or that he had died alone in the darkness with nothing but duty and love in his heart. But they would learn his name, and they would never forget it. The breaking point had come, and humanity had paid for victory with the best of themselves. The Keth Dominion collapsed like a house made of sand. When news of the world burner's destruction spread across the galaxy, everything changed. The Keth had ruled through fear. They had conquered 47 species by convincing everyone that resistance was impossible. Now everyone knew it was not. On 12 different worlds, enslaved species rose up against their Keth masters. On 20 more, conquered peoples who had been silent for centuries began to fight back. The dominion that had stood for 10,000 years crumbled in less than 3 weeks. At Sareth, the remaining Keth forces surrendered. They had no choice. Their fleet was broken, their command was gone, and their empire was falling apart. Admiral Han Seok accepted their surrender with cold formality, then sent them away on their remaining ships. "Do not come back," he told them. "Ever." The war was over. The Ilari had survived. Elder Voss stood in the ruins of his capital city and watched human medics treat wounded refugees. Human engineers were already working on rebuilding basic infrastructure. Human soldiers patrolled the streets, not as conquerors, but as protectors. He found Admiral Han Seok standing alone on a hill overlooking the city. The human was staring at the sky, his face tired and sad. "Admiral," Voss said softly, "I do not have words to thank you. You have saved my entire species. You have given us a future." Han Seok turned to look at the old Ilari leader. His eyes were red. He had not slept in days. "We lost 64 ships," he said, "nearly 15,000 soldiers. Good people who will never go home to their families." He paused. "And Jun Kang, the best pilot I ever knew. He was 26 years old." Voss was quiet for a moment. Then he reached up and placed his small hand on the Admiral's arm. "On my world, we have a saying. The brightest stars burn the shortest. Your soldiers, your pilot. They burned so bright that they lit up the entire galaxy. Their light will never fade." Han Seok smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "Thank you, Elder. That means more than you know." 2 weeks later, Admiral Han Seok stood before the Galactic Assembly. The Assembly was the closest thing the galaxy had to a unified government. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in a massive station at the center of known space. They came to discuss trade and treaties and the affairs of civilization. Today, they had gathered to hear from the humans. Han Seok stood at the central podium. Around him, hundreds of alien faces watched with curiosity, suspicion, or fear. Many of these species had ignored the Ilari's cry for help. Many had assumed the humans would be destroyed. Now they wanted to know what these Deathworlders planned to do next. "You are afraid of us," Han Seok began. His voice was calm and clear. "I understand. You have heard stories about humans. You know we come from a dangerous world. You know we fight without fear. You have seen what we did to the Keth." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as he could. "You think we came to Sareth for power, for territory, for slaves. You think we will demand payment for our help. Some of you probably think we will become the next Keth, conquering our way across the galaxy." He shook his head slowly. "You are wrong." The chamber was completely silent. Every being was listening. "We came to Sareth because someone called for help. That is all. 4 million innocent people were dying, and no one else would save them. So we did, because that is who we are." He pressed a button, and an image appeared above him. It was a photograph of Earth, the pale blue dot floating in the darkness of space. "This is our home world. It is a place of storms and earthquakes and predators. It has tried to kill us since the first day we existed. We survived because we learned to help each other. When one tribe was attacked, the others came to defend them. When one village was starving, the others shared their food. We are alive today because our ancestors understood something simple. No one survives alone." He lowered his voice, but it still carried through the chamber. "We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We do not want to rule you. We only want one thing." He paused. "We want you to know that you are not alone. If you are threatened, if you are dying, if no one else will help, call us. The Deathworlders will answer." The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives were shouting in anger, others were whispering in amazement, a few were quietly weeping. On Sareth, the rebuilding continued. Dr. Hannah Shin worked with Illyri scientists to establish communication protocols between Earth and their world. She taught them about human culture, and they taught her about theirs. Slowly, trust began to form. Sergeant Wu Tei stayed behind to help train Illyri volunteers. They would never be great warriors, but they could learn to defend themselves. He taught them how to hold weapons, how to build fortifications, how to fight back if enemies ever came again. Commander Reth worked alongside him. He had been suspicious of humans at first. He had believed they wanted something in return for their help. But week after week, he watched them give without taking. He watched them sacrifice without asking for rewards. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Reth finally asked the question that had been bothering him since the war began. "Wu Tei, will humans ever stop fighting? Will there ever be a time when you rest?" Wu Tei thought about the question for a long time. He watched the orange light spread across the ruined city. In the distance, he could hear Illyri children playing. They were laughing. They were alive. "When there is no one left who needs protecting," he said slowly, "maybe we will rest. But there is always someone, somewhere in this galaxy, right now. Someone is suffering. Someone is crying for help. Someone is waiting for rescue that might never come." He looked at Reth. "So we will never rest. We will always be ready, because that is who we are." 1 month later, a new signal began broadcasting across the galaxy. It was not a cry for help this time. It was a promise. It was translated into every known language and sent to every corner of mapped space. "This message is from Earth, homeworld of humanity. If you are threatened, if you are dying, if no one else will come, call the Deathworlders. We will answer." Across the universe, 100 species heard the signal. Some laughed at it. Some ignored it. Some were angry. But on dozens of worlds, beings who had been oppressed for generations heard something they had never heard before. They heard hope. On a distant planet called Verath, a slave species called the Moric listened to the signal in their underground caves. They had been conquered by warlords 2 centuries ago. They had given up hope of ever being free. The eldest among them, a female named Mother Hess, gathered her people together. "There are creatures in the stars," she said, "who fight for strangers, who die for people they have never met. They call themselves Deathworlders." She looked at the faces of her people, thin and tired and beaten down by years of suffering. "Perhaps," she whispered, "it is time to call them." On Earth, a memorial was built for Lieutenant Jun Kang and all the others who had died at Sareth. It stood in the center of the capital city, a tall pillar of black stone with their names carved in gold. At the base of the pillar, a single sentence was written in 100 languages. They flew into the dark so others could see the stars. Every year on the anniversary of the battle, people came from across the galaxy to pay their respects. Ilari humans stood together, remembering those who had sacrificed everything. And somewhere in the darkness of space, signals continued to arrive. Calls for help from species who had no one else to turn to. Cries from the desperate and the dying. Every time a signal came, humanity answered. They sent ships and soldiers. They sent medics and engineers. They sent everything they had because they could do nothing less. The galaxy began to change. Where once the strong preyed upon the weak without consequence, now they hesitated. They looked over their shoulders. They wondered if their victims might call the Deathworlders. For the first time in galactic history, the predators began to fear. And on Sereth, where it all began, Elder Voss lived out the rest of his years in peace. Before he died, he wrote one final message to be sent to Earth. You came when no one else would. You fought when no one else dared. You gave us a future when we had none. We will never forget. For as long as the Ilari exist, we will remember the humans who saved us. We will tell our children, and they will tell their children. The story of the Deathworlders will live forever. Thank you. For everything. The message arrived on Earth on a quiet morning. It was read aloud in the assembly hall. When it ended, there was silence. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. Others joined. The sound grew and grew until it filled the entire building. They had lost friends. They had lost family. They had paid a terrible price. But they had also proven something important. They had proven that in a galaxy full of darkness, there was still light. There was still hope. There was still a species willing to fight for what was right. The Deathworlders had left their mark on the stars, and the stars would never be the same.